believe that all of you have the staff report in your packet with the code changes that are attached to that. So I'll be as brief as I can be, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you may have. And we also have Mike Johnson, the city consulting engineer, available for questions as well if you have those. Currently, the city has two documents that contain their road standards. They have both the development standards that were recently updated. Then they have the city code, which was updated not so recently. And some of those had overlapping standards. So what we're suggesting is that you repeal the city code standards that overlap with the new development standards, and that you basically apply the new development standards through the development code. This includes changing some of the roadway widths to eliminate some of the narrower, less urban style streets, as well as modernizing it to include current streetscape designs and current references to design manuals. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. You can have Mike answer them as well. Otherwise, that's the presentation.
I did come across one thing that made me pause. I'd like to know 1007 streets block, and it says block shall not exceed 1,320 feet of length, except those blocks adjacent to arterial streets. And it just seems like that's a long way. Is that not a quarter mile?
That is, and maybe that would be a question for Mike, but I believe that's a fairly standard. That is a fairly standard block length. Mike, do you want to offer an opinion on that?
Yeah, and I would agree that that's a fairly standard block length that we see on
Press that red button.
on different.
Thank you.
Are you able to hear me now? So that is a fairly standard block length that we find in municipal codes. Speaker.
Oh.
All right. Is it playing now?
Well, it was a speaker. Yeah.
It's like a speaker.
Oh, now I can get it, sorry.
All right.
There you go.
There we go.
All right. Just talking to myself for a bit. So Todd's correct that this standard for maximum block length of 1,320 feet is pretty common. You can certainly do streets in between it because this is the maximum, should not exceed. But this is fairly typical for street standards.
We're trying to crank up the volume a little bit. We can hear you now, but you're quiet. Yeah.
I heard it was pretty standard.
Now.
Yeah. So that
There we go.
does that work? Okay.
We didn't hear
So
that.
this is a pretty standard requirement in street standards that the maximum block length be 1,320 feet. They can certainly have shorter intermediate streets that's allowed, but this is the typical distance.
Okay, thank you.
Comment on others.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
No. I think it's standard to me.
All the stuff we discussed.
Exactly.
So can I hear a motion
To
to accept the,
Were there any public comments? You might want to open it up for public comments. If any.
yes, let's do that. Thank you.
Just to remind you.
Are there any public comments with regards to the changes? I see not. Therefore, I would entertain a motion to recommend that the city council adopt these changes.
So moved. So moved.
so moved.
No, I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That would conclude this public hearing. Does everyone have a chance to read the minutes from our last meeting?
I move that we accept the last meeting minutes.
I second.
Any discussion? All approved, say aye.
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 Nay? None. Motion passes. We have a plethora of new business licenses.
Ball rolling. I move that we accept these business licenses.
I'll second the motion.
Discussion, I read through them, I did not see anything that stood out.
So I have a question about the food trucks.
Yes,
So they also fill out the new food truck.
Once the ordinance is passed. Yeah,
Oh,
they
and,
will.
and that's, oh, that's second reading, second reading, okay.
okay,
City council.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Right.
And so any food trucks that we have, we'll go back and grab those.
Excellent.
That was my only question.
okay.
I only have curiosity questions,
Go
but they're
ahead.
not appropriate for this time.
Why not? What do they have on the menu?
Well. Well, there is a brief description of the product or service
Mhm.
that the different businesses
Right,
supply. But I was just curious about, well. This one really kind of cotton candy. Someone from Longview, would that be for instance, a vendor or concession at maybe the Thursday market or something? I'm just curious, how do you sell cotton candy in Toledo?
Well, today, I drove by the parking lot and there was cotton candy hanging out. The booth right there.
Question answered.
that's from Gunsmoke LLC. That's Eddie's place. But I can imagine someone who might set up at Cheese Days
Okay,
would need a license. Anybody set up at the auto show or set up at the Bluegrass Festival would still need a license.
okay. They're just looking ahead then. That's great. That's all I had.
So we had a motion. and
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I don't think we have any new business or unfinished business that we haven't discussed. Any public comment? Yes, sir, Mr. Novak.
Just wanted to share a little bit, briefly. 25, 30 years as a real estate developer and a broker of commercial and retail properties. I've watched for years the classic donut hole being created here with Toledo. And whether it was correct or not, a lot of the people felt that it was an effect of no change, no growth attitude. And that's fine, but I've watched it with cities like, the best example I have that I lived through was Issaquah, where there was no change, no growth. And at some point they lost control of it and it became Costco World Headquarters and a strip mall. And I don't see that happening here. What's happening here is we don't have enough retail-based businesses within our town, and I'll call this old town, because very quickly, everything from exit 57 to 63 out on the freeway, just as Centralia and Chehalis, will become the new district. Whether it's included in the city or not, that's where the growth is going to happen. And just like it happened in Centralia and Chehalis, it took them 20 years to sort of get back to normal in their old downtown. Bank of America moved out and all of the other big businesses took off and they're being replaced out on the freeway with the Washington State Credit Union. employees credit union. Why? Because everybody from Olympia is moving down here. Demographically, they're shoving south. And what we're seeing or going to see here is the rapid growth all around us, whether we like it or not, and not much of a commercial district in town. You have to remember that Second Street was traditionally our commercial district. And Morgan built a cute little town to show you what it used to look like in the early 1900s. Now it's all been taken over by residential. In fact, the worst example is we have a mobile home on the corner of Walk and Don't Walk in the middle of Toledo, which is used as a single family residence rather than it being commercial, some type of business. If we don't upzone something in this town, be it Second Street, because historically that was our commercial district, apparently, parts of Augustus and things like that, or this big chunk of land that's in the middle of town from R1 into commercial, or better yet, mixed use, so we can get some apartments on top of commercial. Vader has a great example of that they're putting together. This is going to die in the old town here. We'll plywood this up and it's going to be just a zero. If you don't annex everything from 63 to 57 exits, eventually that's all going to fill in out there and the city won't get any of the sales tax. And I know that you have the urban growth and all of this to take care of, but those plans are 20 and 30 years old and could easily be, well, maybe not easily, but they could be modified or amended. And if we don't get a push on, we're probably 3 to 5 years too late now to make some of this happen. This portion of Toledo is going to die. It's going to be the donut hole because there aren't enough spaces here for people to put retail businesses, something that's going to create sales tax for you. And that worries me a lot that we're not doing that. The growth is going to be out of Flamondon. They're going to add couple of hundred new doors out there, depending on what you're looking at. That's going to double the size of Toledo. And those people are going to be freeway commuters. They are going to vote. They're going to take over all of City Hall and they're going to make the changes they want. And it won't be the Toledo most of us moved here for, or the reason for living here. This part, you got to realize things like the post office are a lease. Would they move out to the new area? Certainly, it could happen. What would that do to the downtown? So if you don't step in and try and get some upzoning here and get us back to a commercial district that could support the core part of town that we could call Old Town, then that would be great. A good example of the problem we have, we've got all the traffic in the world. The traffic count is great. It's too good. But on Saturday morning, I watched a car club with a bunch of high-end Camaros and Corvettes with $30,000 paint jobs assemble up near the high school and drive through town and went probably to the mountain or somewhere. And they were gone for 2 or 3 hours and they came back and they all pulled in and parked in front of the mural down there by the grocery store. Got out, had a good time, took pictures of their cars and then drove off because there's nothing in this town for them to do. There was nowhere for them to go, nothing for them to do, no little shops, no little. And so all those dollars left town and they drive right through town every day. And that's a problem that we have that's a good problem. But we've got to do something with this zoning and stop plopping mobile homes on what could be commercial property and single family residence. We need an area that will become our commercial district again for Old Town Toledo or New Town Toledo out on the freeway, whichever exit you pick, is going to take it over. And so that's just something I wanted to bring up. And I think we need to address as a community, because if we don't have a vibrant community, we don't have any money, we have no say, but we have all the problems, all the traffic, all the people, all the crime, whatever you want to create there will be around us. And with the need for 25,000 new homes in Lewis County in the next 5 years, guess where they're going to go? People are coming here because they can't afford Olympia and Vancouver anymore. As the interest rates rise, they're rushing here and there's nothing to buy. The state electrical inspector said, John, there's 2 of us here from Vancouver, and we're doing electrical inspections. We've got 20 of them to do in Toledo market area. Not one of them's a new house. People are buying anything they can get their hands on, and then they're just virtually building out what they want of that house. So that's what's happening here, because we're on 10, 20 acre minimums. There's no affordable housing because we haven't got anything broken up into smaller pieces. But if you don't get a business district, Toledo will die downtown. The rest of it's going to take off, but this will die.
Do you think there's any way to avoid the down that's gonna happen here now? I mean, we don't have the residents, sorry to make this a debate. We don't have the resident population here.
No,
Otherwise we'd have to.
well, it's kind of a catch-22, but if nothing's zoned commercial and there's not an area that you can really put a lot in, I just don't see. I don't see it. Our problem right now is demographics, and it's happening all over the world, but it's happening here in Toledo. And if you look at the demographics, basically, it's an 85-year-old woman. You know, one person in a house in Toledo. And until that rotates through and we get families back into downtown, where you have 2.5 people per household, you're not going to get the increase. But when you add 200 doors out there, instantly in say 3 years, you've got another 600 people. And that 600 people is going to vote different from the 600 people here. They're even going to vote because some of these will be too old by then to even think about it. And that's your demographics that you're looking at. And so we did a big downslide. I think we've probably flattened out a little bit here, plateau. But before it grows again, be it through annexation or be it through rotation of people in the town into families again, you know, that's where we're at. And I think, 15 years ago, Wenlock started trying to figure out what they were going to do for land for their schools. We're going to have to build bigger schools for this community. And where's the land going to come from? Where are you going to put them? These are things we need to be looking at now, as opposed to 15 years from now, or 10 years from now, or even 5 years from now, because the land values are going to go up. Maybe somebody's going to annex a couple hundred acres into the city at some point. Well, that's where you can grab some of the land. We'll annex it in if you give us the land for the school. And they can write that off on their taxes as a developer and everybody's happy. But you have to plan for it and figure out where you're going to get it. And the biggest thing is we've got to get some business in town, make it available. Mixed use zoning where we could put apartments on top, little tiny shops underneath.
Don't disagree with a lot of what you have to say, John. I do disagree with some of it, but the thoughts with regards to the improvement of the downtown area have been discussed. Currently we're looking at a situation where we don't have a pot to piss in, essentially.
Exactly.
It's our intention to use some of the new development that's heading out Toledo Vader Road as means to start being able to finance some of the things that we'd like to do downtown, because you're right in the sense, and I said the same thing at that Chamber of Commerce meeting that we had, that we do not have a reason right now for people to stop. There's not a place to stay.
No.
There is nowhere, unless you go over to Brian's place, which not that many people know about.
Now, a lot more do, thank you very much.
Sort of like our secret park, sort of like our secret park.
Our sacred park. If I had the money, I think a 1950s motel,
Yeah.
but done brand new would serve this community wonderfully. But I do agree in the one instance that we have not paid attention to what's going along our main business route. We've got the building that, let's say, that Paula Burrows had rehabbed. It sold and it's to a firm that's manufacturing, but there's no retail there.
No.
And you're absolutely correct. We should not have a mobile home sitting on the corner of walk, don't walk. Um. You know, as I said at that meeting, we have got so many things in the air right now trying to. You know, you'd be throwing darts at a dartboard trying to figure out which one's the most important at any one time, because you're right, we do have like a number of applications in for annexation. We do have current projects that are in application. And a lot of the things that we're doing to try to manage that growth intelligently and to do the due diligence to make sure we get the impact fees that are required.
And gather revenue from permitting. We're
Yeah.
taking on permitting, it's not.
Yeah, we're
doing a lot of what you were saying.
yeah, there's a lot of things I think you're not aware of.
You know, it's not given that you know what's going on, so I don't know how we can sell or what transparency or. You need to see more into what's happening.
And there's a large talent base out here of people that could help officially, unofficially, research and go up to the state and county and work those people over with a rubber hose to get what we need. There's a lot of pressure that we can put on as a community if we had some guidance.
We can't fill our Parks Commission board, so I'm not quite sure I concur with your reasoning that we have all these people available to us. If they are, they're still hiding. And what I find is I find the same people doing 2 and 3 things instead of the one that they volunteered for. By necessity, because there is no one else to do that. But I think if you knew all the ins and outs of what behind the scenes are going on, you would not find us sitting on our thumbs with regards to approaching growth in this town with a bit of a jaundiced eye to make sure that we do what is right, not only for the citizens we have presently, but for the new citizens that are going to come in. And I would like to be there to be an old downtown. I would like that to be a place that's a destination place for people as they're heading to Mount St. Helens. Just make sure we stop in Toledo because there's shops down there that I want to go to. A lot of that deals with zoning and asking people to set aside. You know, I don't know, because I haven't spoken to the city attorney about it. You know, how do you take a business or how do you take a mobile home lot like that? And somebody who's grandfathered in without just waiting for them to pass away before you make that change. I'm sorry?
Thank you for saying, not a lot of people working.
Yeah, and I'll say 2 things is that with this expansion over there at the new development up on Toledo Vader, we've extensively changed a lot of things so that we would generate more revenue from that permitting. And the second thing is that we have not deterred growth here. We haven't been solicited growth here. So it's not like we ever said to Bank of America, no, you're gonna have to go out of town. We want to keep this place small and quiet. We didn't say that.
No, they were talking at the chamber meeting about a month ago, when we were discussing the police issue. And it kept coming up, perception. Well, the public perception is. Whether it's right or not,
is
the
what?
public perception is no growth, no change.
Meaning that's our opinion.
That's not maybe today, but it has been.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Well, it certainly has, but
We made massive changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where we need to get this out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go
But
back.
I appreciate that part, what you're saying.
Yeah.
but I could hold public hearings on all the things that we've done, and we would get Joe and we'd get you maybe, and maybe 2 other people that would show up. So
Free beer goes a long way.
You know, tonight's public hearing is about cleaning up ordinances that are locally.
Yes.
yeah, out of date and like I said, we're trying to do a hop on pop thing, whatever that whack-a-mole thing is, and yet maintain priorities and what we have to actually address now and can be put aside until we have to deal with them. I'm encouraged, actually. You know, we've got a lot of bright people now that are serving. You know, essentially voluntarily. City council is pretty much voluntary, and so is planning commission. So are a lot of the people that other boards in town, you know, the Chamber of Commerce and the Vision Toledo, that all want to see this town succeed. And I don't think this town is going to die. I think there's going to be an interesting shift demographically when Toledo Vader gets developed. And I think there's going to be a lot of retail up there that will benefit the city, but I think that the city can take care of a lot of the things it may want to do downtown by allowing that growth to happen uptown. And my humble opinion. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Novak, for your comments.
Yes, thank you.
I want to make a comment. Thank you for what you all are doing with this cleaning up our ordinances. I look forward to more of it.
I have a question for you, Joe. You and I have talked about this before. If the city were to take over Wallace Pond, how many units do you think we get in that little triangle back there?
RVs,
Yeah.
I believe I had 106 plotted there at one time.
Wow. My wife is thinking 10. I'm going, you're out of your mind.
Or even half that, yeah.
Right, and like I said, you don't have to run water and sewer, just power would probably be sufficient,
Yeah,
just so nobody's sitting there running their generator.
exactly.
You know? Besides the pond, what's the other attraction out there? Could an outdoor auditorium.
I'm sorry.
I said, what's the other attraction out there? Maybe an outdoor auditorium type music in the park event. I'm all for rebuilding the steamboat Toledo out there.
Well, good. You start that in your girl.
I think that'd be a great thing to do, is build out on land, you open the side doors on it, and then you can have music in the park out there.
This is a whole other subject that we have something that most people would die for, and that's this river coming through town.
Yes.
And between up here and the turn of the river, the state, the county, the Department of Transportation, and the city own all of that land. And it could be put together, assembled into some type of walking trails, and you know, you got big cement or big metal towers on both sides, do a zip line both way, or you know, there's things you could do, hang the suspension bridge, or you know, there's a lot that could be done here that people would come to see and do, and you know, so.
Respectfully, that doesn't hinge on the planning commission.
No.
Okay.
Well, I'm
All right,
just
just
saying,
curious.
that's something
Okay.
that would really benefit this.
Oh,
town.
yes, I agree.
And if somebody wanted to.
A river crossing
Get a
zip
group-
line would be
Get a
awesome.
group of people together to assemble this and put that together, sort of like a Vision Toledo with a vision of the waterfront here. That would be something worth doing.
Excellent,
It would
yeah.
probably take 5 to 10 years, but look what you'd have.
Uh-huh.
That's a world-class river, and we're not taking advantage of it. And if we added the park, that's the cement of the whole deal.
I think it really hinges on investors
Yeah.
with deep enough pockets and fortitude to say, I think I'm going to build a small hotel restaurant in downtown Toledo.
Mhm.
And that person just needs to come along. I don't know if we somehow promote ourselves or if it's just a break somehow, somebody's attention is
If
caught.
we can put the vision together and sell that idea, then people will come to do
We just need to be sure we're ready for it.
it. But you have to figure out what it is, what it could be, and then you can find people to do it.
You've mentioned some really cool ideas, and the river, I believe, is quite a draw. Just for fishermen at this point, but fishermen, canoers,
Yeah, camping
kayakers.
and music in the park. Look at how many people come to the Toledo telephone when they would do the movies in the park. Well, we have that type of thing there. So.
We were very close to getting that pond
Mhm.
in 2019. They were going to pay us to pay. They were going to pay the bills while we weaned ourselves off for 3 years
Mhm.
and give us free county event. So we could hold events there without having to pay the county, and COVID hit and shut that down. And what came out of COVID was a new parks czar for Lewis County, and they are hot to trot on parks now. So we just need to wait for that pendulum to swing back to when we don't care about parks and be ready to take it.
Or to get some of the big projects going, you don't have. some of the little-
Yes, exactly.
So you want to conclude this now here? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Oh, yeah.
Now we can carry on.